Hi, my name's Jim Ludwig. I'm the owner of the property here, and I just wanted to welcome you to my home here and tell you a little bit about it. We're about a half mile from the end of the pavement, up here in the middle of the woods, and the house is totally off of the grid, which means that we make all of the electricity here by solar and hydro. My wife and I built the house about 15 years ago, and being a student of architecture myself, I wanted to make it passive solar and very self-sufficient. As you can see, this is the south side of the house. We have lots of glass. We have the PV panels to your right, and the solar hot water panels to your left, which are covered right now because we are not using the water and we don't want them to overheat. The power system is initially and most importantly powered by the hydro generator, and we have a stream with a very good resource of about 75 feet of drop and a good flow, and we generate the majority of our power with that. When during the drier times of the year I've added PV photovoltaic panels to help subsidize the power generation. Also, I'll show you a little bit later on the power room, where all of the balance of system components are that we use to process the power. As far as heating the house, as you can see, there's a lot of glass on the front. It is passive solar. We also heat with wood, and we have propane. The property is 36 acres in size. It's about a half mile from the end of the pavement, up a gravel road, and we really don't have any neighbors. As far as food production, we've built into the grounds here various raised beds near the house, and we also have fruit trees. We have an area for a strawberry bed. I've also leveled out an area where we have a larger, more traditional type garden. So it's not, we are in the mountains of western North Carolina. The property is fairly steep, but we have carved out areas where you can produce your own food, which is very important to self-sufficiency. I bought the property about 25 years ago, and I was a student of Mother Earth News, if you remember that magazine. I went to Shelter Institute to learn how to build my own house, and it was always my dream to build my own house. So I got my opportunity in 1985, and I moved onto the property immediately into a greenhouse geodesic dome type structure, and lived in that for 5 years while I was building the house. I got married during that time, and my wife joined the construction of the house. We built the house together. It's always been important to me to be self-sufficient. Whenever there is a power outage, we look down into the valley and it's dark, but up here on the mountain, people are looking back at us and they see lights. We haven't really sacrificed. We can pretty much use all the appliances that everyone else uses. Satellite TV, dishwasher, washer, dryer, all of it. You just have to be aware of your system. You become part of your system. You live more in tune with what's going on around you. With the weather that day is important as to how much power you get in. So let me welcome you to my home, and I'd love to show you around. Okay, this is the power center right here, or the balance of systems components for the renewable energy system. We'll start at the beginning, where the power comes in from the hydro and the solar. Comes in over here and goes to the fuse box. The most important thing for any power system is that you have adequate fusing, so that if there is a short from the batteries, the solar panels, or the hydro generator, it doesn't fry all the batteries in the inverter, etc., that the fuse will throw. This is the main fuse for the entire system, and then we have fuses here for the hydro and the solar. From the fuse panel, the power goes directly into the batteries. From the batteries, there is a voltage controller right here, because you do not want to overcharge your batteries. Whenever the batteries reach a certain voltage, which you set over here on this dial, then it sends excess power into a dump load. In my situation, I have a heating element in my water heater where the excess power goes to heat water. From the batteries is where we get the 24 volt DC power that feeds into the inverter. The inverter is what changes the electricity from 24 volts direct current into 115 volt alternating current, which is what every home in America uses. All your appliances run on, etc. I also have a 24 volt panel over here. There are a few outlets in the house that are 24 volt, so that if you wanted to plug in a light or a fan in an emergency situation, you could use the power directly out of the batteries. This is the fuse panel for the house. It's the 120 volt panel. It's just like any other house. So as you can see, the house is pretty much wired like any other house. It's just what we do to the power and how we get the power before it gets into that panel that makes us off the grid. Probably the biggest question in your mind, if you're unfamiliar with off-the-grid homes, is that will there be enough electricity? Can I run the things that I like to run? Well, the answer to those questions have a couple of caveats. First of all, you can only use the amount of power that you put into the batteries. You can't overuse it or you'll kill the batteries, and they're very expensive. The answer to the other question is that as far as the amount of power that you use, you are somewhat limited. With my system, I have a 4,000 watt inverter, which will run the refrigerator that we have upstairs, a very efficient refrigerator, excuse me, and also the dishwasher and the clothes washer and the dryer and the dishwasher. So the inverter has a surge capacity of about 8,000 watts. So that will pretty much run everything that you want to. The only thing you cannot run, like I said before, is you cannot use electricity for, say, a electric stove. You cannot use it for heating like that because that is such a big draw. The batteries that we have are made especially for renewable energy systems. They're made a lot more heavy duty than your average car battery, of course. They're much bigger, so that they can stand the depth of discharge and the recharge. These are Rolls batteries. They are about 850 amp hours each, 6 volts each, so I have 4 of them wired in series to make 24 volts, which is my system, a 24 volt system. So I have about 800 amp hours of capacity, which under normal usage would be adequate for about 3 to 4 days if no power was actually coming into the system. You may have questions about the battery, since this is the one part of the system that will wear out over time. These batteries are guaranteed for 15 years, but the life that you'll get out of them depends on how deeply they're discharged and how often they're discharged. The beauty of having a hydro system is that you don't often discharge your batteries to a low level, which will give them more life and more time. These batteries probably have at least another 12 years on them, and the cost of these was about a little over $2,000 for the 4 of these. When it is time to get new batteries, you can recycle these. I recently took a forklift battery into the recycler and received about 50 cents per pound. So these being about 300 pounds each, you'll get about $150 back on each battery, sort of like a rebate. This is our solar hot water tank, which is part of our solar hot water system. It's a 120-gallon tank, and it has a heat exchanger inside. The antifreeze is circulated up to the solar panels and then back down to the heat exchanger in the tank. There are 2 pumps which circulate the antifreeze up to the collectors and down to the heat exchanger here, where they give up their heat into the 120 gallons of hot water. Normally on a clear sunny day, we can get the 120 gallons of this tank up to about 150, 160 degrees. So that's plenty hot enough for a good hot shower. Over here we do have the instantaneous hot water heater, which will bring the temperature up if the temperature in the tank is not quite high enough. This is the instantaneous hot water heater for the house, which will bring the temperature of our water up to temperature, if it isn't quite there yet, by the solar system. And then beside it, the plumbing is done with a plenum type system, where there is a separate pipe going to each faucet or toilet in the house. And then next to that, you can see the system for the floor heat, which heats the downstairs. And the floor heat water can be heated a couple of different ways. We have a separate propane hot water heater, which keeps the floor temperature up to temp whenever we do not have a fire going in the stove. In the stove there is a heat exchanger which will heat the water in the water tank for the floor, so that whenever we do have a fire going in the stove, it also heats the water in the floor. These are our power meters, which tell us about the health of the power system, what's going on with it. When you make your own electricity, it's not like just plugging something in or throwing a switch. You are actually part of the system. So you need to be aware of how full the batteries are, the power that's coming in, and what you're using, so that you don't overuse the power and maybe damage the batteries. So it's important to have meters where you can see them and you can check them every day in your daily routine and just be aware of what's going on. This meter right down here, this is the battery voltage right now at the time, and this is the amount of power coming in from the solar. It's a sunny day, so we're getting about almost 14 amps in from the solar. This meter right up here tells us the battery voltage, also tells us whether or not we're a net gain on power or a net loss. Right now, we are making 21 amps, so we have a net gain coming into the system. And finally, the 85 right there tells us the percentage that the batteries are full. So you look at that, and if it gets down to about 50%, you know that you need to increase the generation, power generation, maybe by starting the generator or something like that. This is the intake for the hydro system. There's a small dam underneath our bridge where we enter the property, which collects the water. Then, as you can see, the water flows over a screen that is at a slant. That's not just an ordinary screen, it's what's called a hydro screen. And it keeps out all of the dirt and the rocks, etc., and it doesn't clog up. The slant is so that all of the debris can be washed off of the screen. The water then goes into the pipe and then down to the hydro generator. This is the generator house right here. I built this because I wanted to be inside, out of the rain and the elements, whenever I needed to go in to change the nozzles on the generator. My first structure was a small box that the unit was in, and I had to lay on my back in the rain or the snow to change the nozzles. So this was a big improvement. The unit right in there is a Harris Hydro unit. It's a direct permanent magnet model, which makes it a little more efficient. And there are two nozzles on that unit there. So basically you have two nozzles squirting water at an 8-inch Pelton wheel, turning the wheel and generating the electricity.